Yay.
Am I on now? You see me?
You're on. I see you.
Okay.
I see both of us.
It's so funny. It's so funny. We always do a little test right before it, and it just works so swimmingly, just totally smooth sailing. And then sometimes it's just glitchy in the very moment.
Yeah. It's just the way. But we are working with the laughers of the Dream Arc today. So you might expect, it's going to pinpoint anywhere we're getting just a little too serious about things and tight about things. So this technology is one of those areas where the laughers might just come in and shake things up a little bit. So let's see what they're gonna bring today. You wanna lead us into the fray today?
Sure. Yeah, and when you were saying that, I'm like, it feels like the laughers and the tricksters are very close cousins.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we're just really happy to see you all here in honor of this month's extremely needed theme that Matthew just introduced, right? And it's going to provide all of us with what I expect will be surprisingly profound guidance. And so I thought we would just hop right in, right? So for those of you who aren't so familiar with the dream arc, there are 12 groupings of animals that are all connected to kind of overarching archetypal themes, like the warriors or the unifiers or the healers or the messengers. And like Matthew said, this month, because I think just about everyone on the planet Earth right now could use some comic relief. We're going to spend some time with the laughers. And a bit of backstory before we got on the call, Matthew and I used the Dream Arc Oracle to draw 3 of the laughers for the sake of everybody here. So we're just going to share them with you and see what comes up for each of us. And we'll probably let the laughers themselves extend all of us some invitations, and we'll see how that goes. But before we get started, I'm wondering if anyone here can relate and could actually use a laugh these days, or at least feel connected to that capacity for joy that you have deep in your heart, even in the midst of the madness. And if you can relate to that need, just put it in the chat. Let us know. Maybe it's actually something you're really good at. You want to acknowledge yourself for that. Like, just no matter what's going on, you always have some humor. My dad was like that, no matter what. My mom too, actually. And just is anybody saying
We had Lynn Goldberg just mentioned that we all need a little laughter, and so I think yes. It's funny that it's funny, haha. I'll be careful how I use that word today.
yeah.
We've just spent 2 months diving deep into the warriors, and you work with the warriors enough, it can start to maybe surface some of the seriousness of the world and life, and so I think it's perfect that these guys come in right afterwards and bring some of that levity to some of these challenging situations that we find ourselves in the world today. And for me, it's the perfect sort of you know segue into just the beauty of these 12 different categories that you've mentioned, is like the balance that we can find as we work with these different archetypes. So this isn't the kind of laughter that's laughing at. This is kind of laughing with, and that there's a deep compassion in these laughers. So yeah, looking forward to sharing that spirit, and a few people here saying yeah, they agree, they can totally relate. So yeah, let's see what the laughers bring to us today.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. All right. So before we share the specific laughers that we pulled from the Oracle, I thought I would share directly from the Codex about the laughers in the words of Richard. So I'm going to just pull up my notes here. Okay. So here we go, everybody. This is the laugher speaking to all of us. Okay. We are the laughers. Of all the creatures loved by the gods, we are coveted most preciously. Do not be tempted to pass us over in favor of more seemingly powerful allies. We hold the key to life, the key to manifestation. All of your human struggles and yearnings, we empathize deeply. We understand your suffering in the bones of our being. It is only those who know who can truly laugh. Therefore, you find us towards the end of all your journeys, at the summit of all of your achievements. Let us into your lives, invite us into your everyday rhythms. We come to remind you that life is for delight and play. Often you do not realize when laughter has left you. You become so used to living without it. But never fear, we laughers drop into your lives at the most inopportune moments. We laugh because we love, and our laughter rings out down the ages of humanity. Even deep sadness and grief is closer than you realize to laughter. Death itself is a veil that we will show you how to brush aside. Then the true laughter of joy will well up within you. Ah, yes, it takes a full human being to laugh from the depths of your soul. This is why we come, and we are here to serve you at all times. That's just like it's so pure medicine for me, I gotta say, especially it's been quite an intense time for me, as you know, Matthew, in my personal life. And we all seem to be in a world that's in free fall at the moment. So I don't know, I can really relate to that. And I feel sometimes like the deepest messages come from those who can see the beauty and the perfection and the humor, even in the most painful moments. And so I'm just wondering if there's anything that comes up for you, just as you kind of hear. I know you've memorized the entire dream arc, Matthew, but like as you hear that offers reflected back to you, like does anything surface for you, just in the essence?
Yeah, it's this world we are living in is going through so much, and there is so much pain, and there is so much suffering, and the laughers make space for all of that. The laughers is not in spite of that. The laughers isn't here to distract us away from that. The laughers is here to pull us, right into that, into the depth of it, to feel it, to be with it all. And there's this constant bubbling of joy and gratitude that comes from oh dear, this is the gratitude escaping. So there's this the joy and the gratitude, the joy and the
I'm
gratitude that bubbles up from the laughers, I think, is such an important thing. And you know, oftentimes when it comes to gratitude, it's to be able to connect into that state of joy, to support us in that state of joy. And if we are waiting for the world to reach perfection before we allow ourselves to feel that state of gratitude or joy, then we'll never feel it. And so it's to be able to recognize this, this world that we live in and this life that we experience, and to be able to laugh at ourselves, to be able to really, this is for me in the dream arc and the gene keys, when it's this allow, accept, embrace. When I can truly embrace my shadows, there's a gentle laughter that emerges, an appreciation for just this whole lived experience. And so I do feel like, yeah, I'm hearing it and recognizing it in what people are seeing here. And somebody here, Safira, I believe, saying last year I realized how healing laughter is. It felt like a deep recognition and relief. So, just I think if we have anything today, I started working with the laughers. I'm working with the duck personally as the laugher. That's my laugher of choice. And or it chose me. And I was actually right after I chose it, I was on Facebook and a friend had this thing where it was a video of a duck running across the screen. And then it was an outline of the duck in the middle of the screen, and it was getting you to pause it to see if you could get the duck running across the screen to line up with the the outline. And I was like, this is fun, and it was just like keep playing at it. And that was right afterwards. And so but my invitation, the first invitation was to watch a funny movie, right? And so, like to feel the tensions in my body, but to still be allow myself the moment, the time for a healing laughter. Yeah. So I think there's more that will come forward as we explore these three creatures today.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just thinking, I don't know how many people here have had this experience when you laugh so hard you start to cry. It's sort of like
Hmm.
it opens the portal of all of the feelings to let them come forth. And
Yeah.
something else I was thinking about, Matthew, is like this paradox between like the bodhisattva vow that I think probably a lot of us who are drawn to the gene keys of the dream arc have taken to some
Hmm.
level, whether we know it or not. Like I'm gonna hang in here, like, my suffering is everyone's suffering, and as long as someone is suffering on this planet, so am I. And then on the other hand, the laughers are also telling us, again, it's like we can't really give if we don't have a full cup.
Mhm.
And there were moments, I grew up with a lot of, like, hyper empathy for suffering all over the world, and I think I really kind of put a block on my own capacity or permission to experience joy because I was so aware of how many people were
Mhm.
suffering. And then someone said to me once,
Mhm.
it said, "Do you think when you're having a really bad day or you lost someone that you really love, that someone in India or Africa, if they're having a wedding, that they're not celebrating that wedding on that day?
Mhm.
Would you want to withhold them? Would you want to withhold that joy from them just because you're having a difficult time?" And it really just kind of it made me think about how precious those moments are when we do have access to joy. And sometimes they're very
Mhm.
rare.
Mhm.
And so that in a way that
Yeah.
it's also a gift to the world to allow ourselves our joy and trust that that can ripple out and also like never want anyone else to withhold their joy just because we're having a difficult time in any given moment. And we are all this giant anarchic oneness in the end. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just kind of like a paradox I'm
Mhm.
really in my life, and I wanted to just kind of drop that into the soup. And maybe should I go on to our first animal?
Yeah, I just say very quickly, I totally resonate that idea of the bodhisattva and the service to humanity and like the focus on bringing change to this planet and feeling the suffering so deeply, and then to be able to balance. It's almost like the bodhisattva, needs this the most in a way. I remember a ayahuasca journey I was on, and in the journey I met this. He was a brahmacharya. He made that very clear. He was a brahmacharya, and he was like this being that was just sitting there, and he was just chuckling. He was laughing away, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, you get so stuck. It's like this lifetime it's just a blip. It's just a blip in this huge, like, eternity that you're a part of, and you're getting so serious about it." And it was just, I could hear that laughter to this day. And so
Yeah.
the brahmacharya, they are very devout, and but still to be able to find that joy, you hear it in the Dalai Lama. I mean, he's written a whole book on this, and he's seen the deep suffering of the world. So yeah, I just wanted to reflect that. But I say, yeah, we've got a three. We'll start swimming with our creatures now.
Okay. And we'll keep that little laughing Buddha in our hearts and minds as we go.
Yeah.
All right. So the first animal that came up for us was the sea urchin, and I actually have one of the cards here. There we go. And I'm just gonna read a bit from the codex, and then we'll just have some fun with it. So the sea urchin, as you know, is a lapper. It's the fear key of being human. And if you're a Gene Keys enthusiast, it's connected to the Gene Key 56. And for Dream Arc lovers, it has two partners. Every animal has a trio, like is a part of a trio, and the bird is the bee eater, which is super connected to the Dream Arc. And the life key, the middle world creature, is the mongoose. Okay, so I have my notes here. Here are some words from Richard from the Codex. Okay. Oh, and I can hold it up for you. All right.
I was just gonna
I
say that. I was just gonna say, when you hold it up there, it looks like it's this massive, to give people a relative perspective. Yeah, how big it actually, yeah, the card
I don't
actually
know
is.
anything actually.
Yeah, yeah, it's like that big, right? Because when you had it up here, it looked like it could be, I don't know, a plate size. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
There
maybe
we
it
go.
represents some fractal design, right? This could be like a whole
Yeah,
galaxy inside of this sea urchin.
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
so now here's sea urchin at this size, probably. I don't even know. I don't think I've even been next to one of these guys. All right. I teach the art of serious laughter. I teach the beauty of paradox. I come to loosen you up. Tightness comes in many forms. Are you tight because of your emotional situation, your financial state, your health, even your intense spiritual yearning? My contemplation is for you to soften up in the place where you are tight. It's down to your habitual thinking. You've grown accustomed to a pattern of tightness somewhere. I come to pierce that place of roughness with my spines. I come to inject lightness into you through my toxic spines. What situation is piercing your awareness and causing you discomfort right now? It is nature's gift, not an annoyance or inconvenience. Turn around the way you see it. Do a 180-degree turn in attitude. Sometimes in your seriousness and intensity, forget to be human. Pay attention to others who you love, perhaps an old friend whom you might have forgotten or an overlooked aspect of your physical life. I also come to those who become overly serious about spirituality. Try being human for a change. Take a risk, perhaps break a pattern, not necessarily for good, but just so that you know you can. Loosen your grip in some way. I don't ask you to change any spiritual discipline you may have, but I do ask you to balance it with some humanness. Be among ordinary people, unspiritual people, quote unquote, even, and you will soon loosen up. They will remind you that the human way has its own magic and laughter. So, what comes up for you,
Lots,
Matt?
lots
Is-
to unpack in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just imagining everybody tuning into the tightness. Well, what are the areas of life that make you feel tight right now, where things maybe aren't flowing, or where, where have you been just, living in the seriousness without even awareness of that? And this isn't to dismiss that seriousness in any way. It's like we feel serious about these things because they're important to us in some way. And so it's like, yeah, where does that show up in your body? Really bring that presence to it. Is it a tightness? Does your shoulders tighten up when you think of that situation? And what happens when we can, yeah, even breathe? I was imagining, I'm sure Richard has done this somewhere too, where we'll just like notice that tension and we'll just breathe and imagine ourselves smiling into that part of our body. And that was kind of the imagery that was coming up there for me. And yeah, this piece about, when we're on these so many of these spiritual teachings that talk about joy and lightness, and yet we can become so serious about our spirituality and got to get enlightened in this lifetime, and how serious we get around that. And it's these paradoxes that we hold when we work with the laughers, that there's holding space for both the seriousness and the laughter, for the grief and the joy, for all of that in there. And to be human, this message of the sea urchin, I think many of us will probably relate to how maybe challenging it could feel to be a human here at this time. And it would be so easy to want to escape, but instead the sea urchin saying, actually, no, come down deeper, feel into this. You got it. You've got a more human strength than you realize. And to evoke that power of the laughers in there, I think is really, yeah, really potent. So there's a lot in there, but that was some of what leapt out to me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Matthew. You know, uh, I was even just asking myself, and I invite everybody to do that too. Like, where is it that you feel tight? And where are those places in your life where that tightness, that constriction comes? And I was just kind of pondering that for myself. And I'm realizing my relationship to technology causes a lot of tightness in my whole nervous
Mm.
system. I'm so dependent on it. And yet in so many ways I feel it kind of like it's draining my life force. And so often I can't figure things out and I feel powerless. I don't know, that just came up to me and I wonder how many people, what your relationship is with technology, whether it's your phone, your computer, your business, the AI, the AI that's exploding everywhere. What happens when things don't work out? Some people love that. That's like the place where their creativity really. I don't know even why I'm talking about
Mhm.
technology, but I was thinking about this tightness. Where do I get that? Also, another place I think has to do with like reciprocity is a really big theme for me right now. And when I'm not feeling that there's reciprocity, especially now, in the old days, I didn't really notice so much. I just like it just give and give, and I wasn't really paying attention to the
Mm.
mutuality of my relationships. But now I can feel a tightness sometimes, and maybe sometimes the tightness is an important message. It's like the body is telling us something isn't right, something you need to pay attention to.
Mhm.
And it's through, for some of us it's through a self-honoring, for some of us it's through like letting go, like letting our gifts out, being more generous, that actually can loosen a tightness. But those are just a couple of things. But one thought I had about the sea urchin, it's the only story I actually have, like specific story about the sea urchin that I have is my daughter Maya, a couple years ago, for the first time in her young life, decided she was going to go take herself on a solo vacation. So that's leaving her boyfriend behind, saving up a lot of money, deciding where she was going to go, like her own little mini Eat, Pray, Love experience. And it was like a huge deal for her, like a huge deal. And she'd been so stressed out with school and work and babysitting, and the people she had babysitting had like a huge family crisis she'd been managing. So it was like this gift of joy that she wanted to give to herself. She ended up going to Croatia. She even had to have a fight with her boyfriend about it because he has some ethical issues around travel for travel's sake. So she had to even like tell herself that she was worthy of this, even though she had some guilt about making this decision. So it was like there was a lot of internal and external things she had to do to give herself this gift of supposed joy and vacation. So she gets there, she arrives, she loves the place where she's staying. She goes out for her first walk down these giant stairs, finds herself a beautiful cafe, eats a delicious meal, gets up and wants to start walking around, and she sprains her ankle.
Mm.
Like really, really bad. And she, that place where she was, like she couldn't get back to her hotel without walking and going up flights and flights of stairs. And it was this moment for her that I learned so much about, because like for me, I'm like, oh my God, my daughter, she's stuck in a place she doesn't know with a horribly, she's in so much pain. Her whole vacation is ruined. She's not going to be able to go anywhere, see anything, do anything. But she was so amazing. Like she did make it back to her hotel room, and she's like, you know what? Now I actually have permission to relax. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
she's like,
Yeah.
I can't even be perfectionistic about this vacation. I can't even like try and make this the perfect, most enjoyable experience. And she ended up having the best time. And because it was really the gift of letting go of that perfectionism, and that drive. So it was just for me, it was a human lesson from this. Oh no, I didn't even tell you this. Oh my God, I didn't even tell you this. She got stung by a sea urchin.
Oh, that's where this came from.
Oh my God, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, yeah. So on that vacation, she sprains her ankle, and then one day she's able to get to the beach and gets stung by a sea urchin.
Wow.
And all she could do was lay down with her foot up. But anyway, I thought that was so interesting, like this very human story and all these expectations we have, even for the moments we think are going to bring us joy. And the
Mm-hmm.
joy that happens when we drop the expectations and we let ourselves be human, like that's the deeper joy. So anyway, that was the story that came to me when I was thinking of the sea urchin that I would share in honor of my daughter.
I love it. I think that's a great story. And you know that it's that allowing of joy, noticing the guilt we feel for allowing ourselves to feel joy or for allowing ourselves to rest. It's like especially, hey, the world's really in a bad space right now. It could look like, when we're looking out there, and so can I actually allow myself to laugh without feeling guilty? Can I allow myself to enjoy life? And like you were talking about earlier, that how that joy contributes to the whole, right? When we allow that joy to be in service to the whole. And one of the other things as you were talking, you mentioned Eat, Pray, Love. And just before you'd mentioned that, I've been thinking of Elizabeth Gilbert and her big magic because of something you said earlier. And in that, one of the things that she talks about is in writing and approaching writing, you can approach it as the martyr or the trickster. And I know we're not in the tricksters category, but it seems like it's like, we can approach it with this seriousness and expecting more seriousness, and that I'm just writing to unwind all my wounding, which absolutely happens in writing, but we can also approach it with this trickster and more playful approach. We still meet the wounding, but there's a different focus and intention. And then she shared the story of how Brene Brown worked with that idea with one of her books. And instead of approaching it how she'd usually approached it, she gathered some friends around, and they had a weekend where they're having so much fun, and they were digging out of books, and she was getting criticized for her writing and told what was silly and things like that. But she pieced together this new book out of this fun girls' weekend. And so that was something as you were talking, like really allowing ourselves to feel joy and recognizing how that contributes to the whole. And yeah, like a lot, I think joy and rest, both those examples were in your daughter's story there. And when we allow ourselves to truly rest, like, can we allow ourselves to rest without feeling the guilt? Can we allow ourselves to feel the joy? So I think this is we're saying, hey, give yourself permission today to laugh and to experience joy, and just notice, like, oh, how much do I allow myself to, right? And what happens, if I bring myself to that, if I'm dealing with a big problem in life, what happens if I step away and just experience a little joy and a little bit of laughter? What happens when I reapproach that problem? Because like Einstein says, we can never change a situation from approaching it at the same consciousness in which that situation, that problem was created. So technology is a great example. And actually, I learned this from Louise Hay, who incidentally talked about guilt and the ankle, right? How ankle injuries were often due to guilt. That was something she would talk about. But when yeah, yeah, it's because I used to sprain my ankle all the time, and so I really took that. And I haven't sprained my ankle in about 13 or 14 years, but it used to be like once a year on, and that is on par with when I've moved through some deep self-forgiveness in that way. But one of the things that Louise Hay showed me, because I got to meet her when she was still alive, and I visited her in her condo one time, and she had her computer out, and it's just like there's just so much color and light in her room, but she had words written on her computer screen, so that she's like, I want to have a good relationship with technology. And so I took the word joy, and I just stamped it on my computer after I met with her. And that computer worked for me for 10 years, and it still works. I just don't use it because it's not as quick as some of the other ones, but I never had any challenges with it. And so, you know just saying. For the technology piece.
Oh yeah, don't. Yeah, but I do have a picture of my daughter when she was 2 on my big screen, so that does help. It does help.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting about the ankle and guilt, because I also used to sprain my ankle when I was little, and I just
Yeah,
think I was born feeling guilty about existing. So that makes sense.
right. Yeah,
So, did
exactly.
you want to take us to our next creature?
Should we go?
Or
Should we go kooky? Should we go kooky with the kookaburra? So we're gonna go. So yeah, we're working with here with the Kookaburra, and now the Kookaburra's got a lot of questions, right? So listen to some of these questions, and just which is one that sort of speaks to you in this moment, right? Which is one that speaks to you in this moment. Kookaburra says, I laugh the world into being each morning. Without my raucous laughter, the sun would not rise, the world would not awaken, and you would not be here reading these words. I am the eternal spirit of life itself. I am joy untarnished, unrestrained, and unchecked mirth. Can you live a life of authentic choices? Can you make mistake after mistake and then forgive yourself over and over? How will you make your way back to joy? How will you rediscover the simple and the radiant? What choices have you been making recently? And are they leading you towards me, meaning joy? If I have appeared before you now, it means that you must take a long, honest list, especially for those of you who just jumped on or wondering what the heck you've landed on this part for you. It's like, um, if I have appeared before you now, where does it go? It means you must take a long, honest look at the choices that you are making. Have you got yourself tangled up in a complex situation? How will you find the laughter in life from this place? And then there's more questions, more questions, more questions. Eesh, this one asks a lot of questions. But I'm going to finish with this. Do these things now. Make joy a priority. So we're continuing that message. Give joy and you will hear my laughter. There's nothing better in this beautiful world than this. To laugh helplessly like a child, and to sit quietly with those you love in sadness and in joy. Just this. just this joy of being. So what did that, did anything stand out there for you? Anything leap out
Yeah,
for the message from the Kookaburra for you?
yeah. I was having some flashes to several times in my life where there was a death in the family, and in the middle of all of the weeping, someone would say something very funny and we would all burst into laughter. I don't know why that came to me. Like I was thinking of my dad in that moment, who I miss very much.
Mm.
But there's something about like, and this is maybe not just for me, it's for you, it's for everybody listening. Like if we could think of a big decision that we're in the process of making right now, and then the various options that we're considering, and then ask ourselves, like, it just simplifies it so much in relation to the options. Like, is this going to add weight to my life, or is this going to give me a deeper sense of freedom? And that's what came to me, that question. Like, what would happen if every time we were making a decision, we would pour it through that particular prism?
Mhm.
And this is, I mean, I'm going through some really big decisions these days. And, often yeah, I will pour it through a different prism. Like, how can I contribute more? Or is this what's going to make the biggest difference? Or who might get hurt? Or am I going to disappoint someone? Or, will this be considered a failure or not? But like, there's something about weighing decisions based on lightness of being versus heaviness. And, I don't know. That's just what I'm sitting with right now, and I'm wondering if that brings anything up for anybody else or for you, Matthew. Feels like that was like one of the I don't know, one of the invitations I was feeling very deeply from the Kookaburra in that moment. I mean, every time I read it or connect, something new comes, but that felt very powerful for me.
No, that's I think that's really important for any of these big decisions that we make, because allowing ourselves to our whenever our intuition speaks to us, it's going to be through lightness. It's not a sense of heaviness. It's only, we might have those moments where intuitively we feel, oh yes, moving towards that, and we feel that pull to it, and then our mind can kick in and it can complexify things and it can add to the weight of it. But in that moment, there is that lightness of being, and there it does feel like a joyful kind of, oh yeah, this is, you know this is it. And that I always remember from the Bhagavad Gita, the Indian Bhagavad Gita, and it would talk about joy in there, and but not a selfish joy was something it was saying. It's like, and we can convince ourselves that our joys are selfish sometimes because I'm feeling joy, but it's like, if you look at the joy of Rosie painting the 192 creatures of the dream arc, that brought her joy in that, and it's brought such a joy to so many other people. It's a true selfless joy in that way. And so there's that, yeah, will it bring this, is there that lightness behind this decision and this choice in this moment? I think is such an important question, because a lot of times the decision, could come around from a place of should, like we were talking about earlier, kind of like the expectations, and that can be, the heaviness of around that. And could we take something that even, like we're going into an election here in Canada, and there's all kinds of like, yeah, I mean, you guys know all about this in America. You went through one pretty recently, and and there can be this there can be this real kind of, heaviness and should around it. And, what if we can make our choices around that, even from that place of allowing ourselves to attune to the lightness that wants to emerge, that wants to come through. And so, you know, again, it's like these laughers are asking us to take that challenging situation, that difficult decision, and bring this to it. And it was like, yeah, what is that? So I think that's a great question. Yes. That would be my short answer. Yes.
You know,
Because
I
I've made,
yeah,
no, go ahead.
you've made what?
I've made, many decisions in my life when they've been led by the analytical mind at times,
Mm.
right? but more and more, it's like listening to how my being responds to the decisions, right? And what I feel inside of that. And yeah, so I think it's really important to take that into consideration, because we can overanalyze situations through the mind. We can analyze them from every which way.
Mhm.
But that question of, will it bring lightness? Is there lightness and freedom in this decision? Because if it's there for you,
Mhm.
it's there for others as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me of Bashar and so many teachers who talk about follow your passion. That's the result. That's what it's all about. And that's how you know you're living your life purpose. But one thing that came up for me when you were talking is this question, and this is also for all of us, like, is joy an actual value? Like I had a therapy session a while back, and she had asked me, like, what are your three highest values in life? And we were talking about how difficult it's been for me to practice self-care. And I could see that intellectually I wanted self-care to be a value, but it wasn't. And I could tell it wasn't because I'm looking at the sum total of where I put my time, energy, where I put my time and energy at that time. And the way we spend our time and energy reflects our core values. And so that came up this thing. Like she said, well, what would it take? You can't just decide something's going to be a core value intellectually. It doesn't work that way. You could think it's a great idea, but there are usually a lot of reasons why it hasn't been that. Oh, are you losing me, Matthew? You're getting a little pixelated for me. Okay.
No, no, you're good.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it ended up being like a really profound, like, exploration for me. It's like, why is joy? Like, why is joy? Why is self care so difficult for me to value? And it brought up these questions of guilt and selfishness and shoulds and all that kind of stuff. And I've been through a big process, and actually, it is organically becoming a value. It's organically becoming a value. And that's like my invitation to everyone is to be open, if it isn't already, to joy organically becoming one of your deepest core values. Yeah. I just wanted to share that. And then look at what might be in the way of that. What are other things that you've been taught or conditioned to believe are much, much more important than that?
Mm-hmm.
No. So yeah. So you want to take us to our next animal, or have people been saying anything that
There's been a few comments here. Yeah. People loving Venus, loving the question of whether it will bring heaviness or freedom. That's our key takeaway there. And then somebody says, Safira saying, last year I found something that really brought me joy, but I somehow couldn't go through with it. So many fears and guilt came up. Now I'm here again asking, maybe I want to try that, or if I want to try that again. Yeah. Yeah. And that's something too, is like, perhaps the things that once brought us joy no longer bring us joy, but perhaps it is that we thought, hey, um, I want to do this, but then the mind kicked in with reasons and fears and doubts and as to why we couldn't. Because if we look at, yeah, again, go to the Bhagavad Gita, turn to the many of the spiritual texts of the world, listen to the Dalai Lama. Joy is so central to so much of it, and it's allowing ourselves to feel it in a world that tells us that we should be feeling anything but joy. To live in joy in our bodies, to enjoy our bodies. That's a part of the message of the sea urchin as well, to enjoy living in this body, in this physical body, rather than looking out there and all these things that say, oh, these are the reasons why you can't enjoy it yet. You've got to change this, you've got to change that. Da, 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 da. Expectation.
no.
And so to really allow ourselves to, it's like, it's really a high ideal, and it's a high ideal in a world, and to be able to find that joy sources from within versus from looking outside for that thing that's going to bring me joy, but the joy is sourced from witin, because we're in a world that is needing to go inwards to source that joy right now, because
Yeah.
there are so many mirrors in the world saying, yeah, there's this pain and anguish as well. And I've heard of some of the ways that, you know a lot of stories from Charles Eisenstein in particular, where people, instead of protesting in traditional way, they would they would knit. The grandmothers would gather and they would knit. While the warriors were on the front line, the gap, because when they were knitting, they were they were playing with all of life, and they felt like it was connecting them to the elements and to all that unseen support in the world, in the universe, right? And so these ways, and I just watched the document and movie, sorry, not documentary, the movie of Bob Dylan's life. And of course, me being the Gene Keys nerd that I am as well, draw up his Gene Keys chart, and I see he's got this 49th Gene Key as his SQ, his spiritual quotient, which is this gift of revolution, is the spirit of rebirth, and it's the same one that I have in my SQ. And I just love how he demonstrates that throughout the movie, because there's one point where there's a song that really brings him joy, and he's like, I want to play this. And the event organizers are saying, don't you play that. You got to play some folk. This is a folk event. And he's stepped up on the stage there playing like this total inner spirit of revolution and rebelliousness that is Bob Dylan. And he was sourcing that joy from within, even though people were throwing beer cans at him. And then this album then goes on to do really well in the world. It's just in that moment, it took a rebellious act of joy for him to bring forward the music that's sung from his heart. And I feel that that's so important to remember, is that sometimes our joy is a real rebellion in the world. And can we have that courage to listen to that? I think, so laughing and joy is courage in this, in this world at times. And so, yeah, I think that's all I want to say for now.
So beautiful, Matthew. I was thinking the same thing when you were talking about that link between joy and courage. So I'm really glad that you shared that story too, for also from that movie. I remember that. Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
One more thing I thought I'd share, and then we'll go to the next animal, our last one, is that in any given moment, we can choose what we're going to focus on. And each of us also has our unique gift to offer the world. And I feel like just like we need all the categories in the dream arc to create a wholeness, to create a balance. Sometimes there are times we need to be a warrior, and sometimes it's time to be a unifier, and sometimes we need healing, and sometimes we got to go hunting, right? It's the totality that is what makes us human. And similarly, I remember, like, in terms of all the ways in which the world is suffering right now, there will be people whose role it is to point out what's wrong so that we know what kind of a change we want to make. And then there will be people who have the role of envisioning and embodying the new world that we want to be moving into. I mean, this is kind of simplistic, but I'm just kind of putting it in that direction. And there will be times in our lives where we might be called to do one or the other thing. But for me, the joy, connecting with the joy, feels like it connects with that piece of, like, being the change we want to see in the world. If we want to see a world where people experience joy, we need to have access to our joy. If all we're doing is connecting with and pointing out and merging with the suffering, we're not actually going to be adding our energy, our precious energy, life energy. Not that we don't need that. We do need to be doing that sometimes. So it's not an either or situation, but there are absolutely benefits to our future if we can access joy, even in the midst of pain, in the midst of suffering, in the midst of chaos, confusion, polarization. You know, the women knitting, that was such a beautiful metaphor, and I just wanted to just contextualize it for those of us who are easily guilt ridden when we contemplate the possibility of putting our focus on and receiving joy, to see that that is actually a part of building the new world through embodiment.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And it's interesting how even in, like, in the political world, satire is the closest that people will come to finding that way to bring laughter into something that's serious, right? It's like that no matter what what our role is, no matter how serious it can be at times, to be able to invoke some way to bring that balance into our life, because that the seriousness, if it builds up enough inside of ourselves, it can lead to kinds of sicknesses within the body, physical maladies within the body. So to have something, each of us, and at different times, we know we need that. And so I know some real activists who are also some of the funniest people that I meet when I, hanging out with them, because they find that balance inside of them. So yeah,
But they have
I
to.
think what you're saying is,
They have
yeah,
to.
for their own
Or they'll burn
well-being. Yeah.
out.
And
They'll burn out
yeah,
without humor.
exactly. Exactly.
So
So
for the last,
yeah, we've got a
um,
we've got a meerkat. So I don't mean
oh no, Matthew, I don't hear you so well.
that's somebody tried calling me.
Oh, okay.
I should be back now, although it's disconnected me from here.
And
So yeah, we're gonna
people let us know, do you see Matthew? Do you see us clearly and do you hear us clearly? Because Matthew, you've been very pixelated from me for a while, and I want to know if that's because of my connection. Um, just let us know. But continue, Matthew. Meerkat.
we we've both been clear to me. Both of
Okay.
us have been clear.
Okay.
You and technology have got something to sort out here. You got to have a laugh together, you and technology.
Oh, I get
All right. So we got the meerkat. Yeah. So there it is on display there. Little friendly creature. Some of you might recognize it. In fact, yeah. Let me read this first. I am Meerkat. If you draw me into your life, then you are so fortunate. I have but one lesson for you. Play, play, play. How did you get so serious? Yeah, there's a thread here, isn't there? How did life become so hard for you? You may have forgotten all of your blessings. So from this day forth, I will help you to remind yourself to count your blessings. Take a blank book, and every day at the same time of day, write down one blessing in your life. You may also be playful in this. Perhaps it will come out as a sketch or a poem or a photograph. This is a discipline I've set for you. Do this for one whole month from today. Mark your calendar, write your notes, and post them above your mirror or your bed. This is to be a playful discipline. If you take it too seriously, you will miss the whole point. Until you can move lightly through life, you will never, never find happiness. You will only find snatches of joy. So be overjoyed that you have chosen to remind yourself of this most important of all great human secrets. It's another reminder for joy. So yeah, what stood out for you there, Rosie?
Oh, well, one thing I started thinking about my blessings, and I was thinking about you, Matthew. You've been such a blessing in my life.
Ditto.
And I was thinking about everybody who attends these Instagram calls. Oh, what are you saying, Matthew?
There is
Zoom or something?
no, it's I don't know what that other one is. I think there's a blue jay, which has been a stellar jay, which has been my warrior bird for a while. And it looks like him and a robin are going at it outside.
Oh, that's going at it.
They they were having a little bit of they were yelling at each other.
Oh, okay.
But
I didn't know it was like a romantic tryst, interspecies romantic tryst.
interspecies. Yeah, it could be. I'm not able to hear what they're talking about right now, but I'll check in on them later. But yeah, that's the warrior I've been working with,
And you also worked with a robin. You worked with the robin too. So those are two birds that are intersecting, that are playing. They're energies that are playing together right now, and you'd be mirrored by that. And
yeah, they're hopping up and down the tree. I'll pay attention to them, but I don't want to distract from. But I want you to answer that question.
he was like in the middle of this heartfelt acknowledgement of you.
Oh, and I was like, no, look, we have to be able to receive. Thank you. Yeah, here's me getting distracted by some birds outside to return that message to them.
It's right. Yeah, but I feel very like the blessing, the blessing of the dream arc, the blessing of everybody who comes to these calls. Like Matthew says, so much of our work is behind the scenes. So it's always so nice for me to feel like everybody who takes the time to actually make a comment and let us know that you're listening, that this is feeling relevant to you. That feels like a blessing to me. And there were so many blessings, but that was like the first place where my mind went is, and actually it was like, how would I just do one a day? There are just so many. There are so many. But anyway, thank you, Matthew, for having been a blessing in my life for so long. Yeah.
And thank you to you too, Rosie. Yeah. And maybe everybody can share something in here that
I
feels
would
like a
love
blessing.
that. I would love
Yeah.
that. Let's hear
Just
people.
even if it's one word.
It can
Yeah.
be
Let's
small, it can be big.
it
Oh,
can be somebody said we too are blessings. Yay. Thank you, Verenas. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I I've talked about this some places. I know Rosie knows about this. I don't know if others do, but there's a video I created that's on YouTube. It's been there for about 15 years. So it's a much younger version of me on there. But it's called the Original Gratitude Dance. And one of the things we would go around teaching this silly dance, and we would teach it in 4 steps. There's 4 steps. The first one is that you grab your arm. You see, I can't even demonstrate it here, but easily. But we sort of bring our arms down in front of us in a circular motion, right? That's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can do it from yours. You got it from the distance. And then the other thing is that we connect this joy to the earth, right? So we're tapping our feet up and down. So we're like alternating left, right, right? And and just doing this, and we start to do this, and then you start to speed it up and you start to go really quickly and you do this happy dance or the gratitude dance as we called it, and try to do that without smiling.
yeah.
That's the challenge there. That's the dare to be able to shift that. So sometimes if we're trying to resolve this and change it just with our mind, it can feel challenging. But if we can change it physiologically, if we can change how we move, if we can get up and do a little dance and just allow ourselves to feel what kind of joy can come pouring through in that moment. And so I just wanted, it doesn't have to be the original gratitude dance or the gratitude dance rather, but just something like my dog has just come upstairs and she's somebody after a call when I've been talking too long, she comes up, lets me know it's time, and she'll come up and she'll hug me, and that is a source of joy. And then we'll dance together sometimes as well. So yeah, sharing your blessings and saying her children are blessings that brought lightness and joy into her seriousness.
I love
What else have
that.
we got?
So true.
Yeah. What are your blessings? What are the blessings you're counting today, folks? We want to
Also, while people are sharing their blessings, I wanted to just add on to like, so what are the things that we could do in our bodies that call forth a feeling that we can't think ourselves to? I mean, I love that. I love what your gratitude dance was about. And I hope that we can put a link somewhere so people can see it and learn more about an aspect of your multifaceted background. And also, I'm just thinking about the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck with the 64 Faces of Awakening, and they all my own art project, and they all have a little smile on their face, which is actually a spiritual practice of meditating with a little smile on the face. And it makes such a huge difference. I don't know if anybody has ever done that, just consciously, intentionally meditated or sat and just rested in your own presence. Oh, you'd have to get it. But anyway, but just
I'm gonna shuffle one and
just
just shut.
a little smile. Well, you can see one of them right behind me, right? It's just a very gentle smile, but it can make such a difference. And I'm going to be going to a meeting. Oh, there you go. She doesn't have the biggest smile, but yeah, there's a little smile there. Yeah.
Well, she's the 47th gene key. Like that's that's still oppression to transmutation. Exactly. And that is a big smile for that gene key.
Very true. Yeah, well, she's important to me in my own profile. But I'm going to be going to a meeting at some point, which is going to be a serious meeting for me. And I think I'm going to give myself that challenge to just have a little smile on my face. and see what that does with my physiology, with my nervous system, and how that also impacts my perspective and worldview during that time. And that, yeah, my life's work too. Letting you know. One other thought I just wanted to put out there for people. This is maybe a little, it's going a little different direction, but this invitation to play, play, play. I mean, there are a lot of us who kind of do know what we would love to do if we could, right? We know what our playful spirits want to do. And I want to acknowledge that for some of us, or many of us, and especially now with the economy as it is, money fears can come up around that. Money fears like, well, I know I would do this, but I don't know how I would make a living if I were to do that. And so a lot of play compromises take place because of money fears. And I don't know if anybody can relate to that or if you can relate to that, Matthew, but I just wanted to presence that as something that I think is worth our contemplations. And where it may be the case where we have to keep a job in order to make money, but there are other ways that we can feed our joy on the side, or whether we're coming to a place in our life where it's time to take a leap and trust that we will be supported. We will be supported if we truly follow the impulse of our playful spirit and our playful hearts. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I think that's really important to be able to not make it the first thing that we take the leap for, to not associate, oh, okay, it's like I'm writing something right now. It's a story and I might publish it one day, but right now it gives me joy to write it. And I also notice the blocks to that joy when and it's like, oh, but it's such a fun story. And it's like, it's just taking off on it's got a life of its own. And, noticing again when we place expectations around that, like, oh, it's got to fuel me, it's got to make money for me. And it's like, so we might have those things where our joy and our money are aligned that way. And at the same time, it's really important, I think, to have that place where it's just for the joy of it. It is just for the joy of it. But, and yes, like I think for me in my own life, I think, seriousness about money has probably been one of the greatest things I've had to work with and move through and transcend in and 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 yes, how does that change when it seems like the economy in the world is changing around us? And how can I still, bring that, recognize that I'm creating from within, and so to be able to to acknowledge the tightness, to acknowledge the seriousness that we feel around money, and to be able to bring the spirit of the laughers into that. It's not, you also, that's maybe why the J showed up and says, hey, you might need a warrior as well, a warrior for laughter, because it might not be the most easy thing in some of these times that we're in at this moment. But
So
yeah.
true. I want to piggyback off of something you said earlier about, sometimes we find our joy by separating money and performance from the act, from the creative act. As opposed, sometimes we want to bring them together, like, hey, I can actually make a living doing what I love. And sometimes it's like, we try to add the making a living to doing what we love. We stop loving what we're doing. So I was thinking of this, and I know we're coming to an end, but I was thinking of this conversation I had with my husband, Kim, a long time ago about being in the circle of creativity or being outside the circle of creativity. And so let's say I also have had a writing project that's been going on for decades or whatever. And, I've been able to prioritize it at sometimes, and sometimes there were years and I wouldn't even touch it. And I noticed that when I wasn't connected to it, I would judge whether it was good enough, whether it was worth doing, whether I'd ever make money doing it. Like all of the inner critic got activated when I was not in the circle of the creative process. The times when I was actually writing it and I was in the story and the characters were alive for me, I didn't care about any of that. None of that mattered. How anybody would perceive it, whether it was good enough, whether I could make money, whether it was my next career, it was completely irrelevant. And so there's like a natural organic protection that happens, like a warrior protection around the creative process when we allow ourselves to go in, when we go full-heartedly into it. And it's really only like the noise happens when we're on the outside looking at it, longing for it, judging it, whatever that relationship is. So that's also like an invitation to seduce ourselves back into the circle of our joy and our creativity. And we will be protected in all kinds of ways that we can't even imagine when we do that. Yeah.
I love it. That's brilliant. Seduced into our play. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Sometimes we're
I
quick.
love
It's
it.
a seduction, you know?
Yes.
It's not a
Yeah, yeah.
direct line. It's like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Awesome. So I think there's been a little bit of an initiation from the laughters today.
yeah.
I think this is the first time we've worked with three in one like this, but I think of the Marx Brothers, they came in their trios. There's others that come in, there's these trios of laughters that we've known throughout time, haven't we?
Yeah.
So I think the sea urchin, the meerkat, and the kookaburra, they've each got something unique. Perhaps there was one that resonated more than the other with you. Perhaps there was something that wove between, there was a thread between the three that you recognized and appreciated and that could support your contemplations at this time. But just allowing yourself, I would say this is a challenge to anybody who's hopped on, watching this, joined in for the whole call, joined in for a few minutes is what's your relationship to joy? What are the ways in which you find joy? What are the resistance? Where's the resistance to joy in your life? Where are the areas of greatest challenge to allowing yourself to feel joy? And you know, what do you notice you manifest in your life when you come from the place of joy that is birthed from within? Right? It's that there's so much that these guys can, and we're just opening it up. There's nine. This is a smaller group. I remember that with the laughers. I can't remember how many there are, but
Oh, yeah. I mean,
um
are you gonna?
so there's a group. Yeah, I'll just have a check here. Here you go. Where are we? Laughers. I think there was, if I remember rightly. So there's oh no, there's 11 of them. Okay, there's 11,
Yeah,
11 laughers.
that makes sense.
Sounds
I'm
good.
thinking of Luis's mascots
Yes,
from the World Happiness
that's right.
Star. Yeah, yeah, I love.
Yeah,
I remember that.
yeah, the 11. So the laughers is going to be the theme of our next gazelle, which will be out very soon, and there will be things there to attune us to the spirit of joy. And we bring forward with us the wisdom of the warriors and all the categories that have come before. But for those of you who are feeling like, to be able to source that joy throughout all of this, whatever's going on in your life, and allowing joy to be your compass, then I think the laughers will bring something invaluable. So we'll have that gazelle out sometime next week. There will also be a Dream Pod call for those who are in the Dream Art course. Who have the Dream Art course, there will be a Dream Pod call next Monday, the 14th, with myself and Rosie facilitating that. We have a video called Ram Inspired Strength. It's on our YouTube channel, the DreamArc YouTube channel. And on there, Ram Inspired Strength, we're kind of digging into stability and grounding through these times. And so we're going to sort of attune to that theme when we meet in our space together on Monday. So if you're somebody who doesn't yet own the DreamArc course, you can watch that video on YouTube at any time. For anybody who's in the DreamArc course, owns a copy of the DreamArc course, then you are more than welcome to join our call. There will be a breakout room specifically for people new to the DreamArc. That'll be me facilitating that room. So that way, if you've got questions about the DreamArc, you're not sure how to get to navigate it, or you've come up against some obstacles, then we'll have that space there to be able to support that. And check out our Clubhouse schedule as well. We have Clubhouse spaces. So our bio above has a whole bunch of links. You'll be able to find links to everything I've just mentioned there. And this has been a joy to journey with you. Rosie, somebody's just asking, how do you access the call? If that's the Dream Pod call, if you go to our DreamArc events page, if you yeah, if you search on Google, even if you type in Dream Arc events and you own the course, it'll show you all the calls that are in there. If you go to Gene Key's just events calendar, it should be in there as well. Okay. But we'll make sure that that's also going to be in the Gazelle newsletter. So it'll be very clear where to get to as well. Okay. So yeah, I think that's it from us at this time. Is there any final words you wanted to say, Rosie?
Now, just the question came up to me, like, what would your life look like if joy were amongst your highest values?
That's a really good question. What would your life look like if joy was amongst your highest value? And I just want to say something too. I just had this sudden remembrance that when I was in hospital for 6 weeks, I was in a children's ward for 6 weeks, and I was 14 at the time. This wasn't recent. 14. I was 14 at the time, and the children there would play on repeat because kids love to watch these films on repeat. Mary Poppins, and there's this beautiful scene. You can find it on YouTube, and it's just I love to laugh. And it speaks to the contagiousness of laughter. And like, I'm just imagining everybody here, if we were all to just laugh in our own unique way, what kind of a laughter chain would be created. And that would be a simple way for us to, to have joy as one of our values in that way. So I'm going to laugh today.
Yes.
I've already laughed a little today.
That's the
And I'm gonna laugh more.
Have you seen that? Have you seen the video Bodhisattva on the train? Have you seen that? Where a man gets on a train and starts laughing until everybody's laughing, and he hops the train.
Yes.
And it was in Germany, maybe. I think it was. I can't remember the country it was in. But if anybody is inspired, check that out. Bodhisattva on the train. I think that's what it was called, the video, and it's real. And then it's the real thing, real deal. Let's be that like that guy.
Yeah, laughter chains like that are great. And Kimmy's just I love to laugh, ha ha ha, loud and strong and clear. That's from the song I was just saying on Mary Poppins. It got me through the most challenging time of my life. So, yeah, so far I should say. But yeah. Well, thank you, Rosie. Thank you, everybody. Please enjoy a laugh today on us somewhere somehow. And hold that question that Rosie left you with. I think that's a powerful question. What would your life look like if joy was one of your values? Yeah.
One of your highest values, or your deepest, like way up there. No, not just one of your key values, but like
one of your peak values. Yeah. There we go. All right. Peak values. There we go. Okay. Awesome. We'll see you soon, everybody. Thank you so much, Rosie. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.